The lawsuit accuses a former priest at St. John Paul II Catholic Church in Sellersburg of sexual assault. It also accuses the current head pastor of doing nothing after the woman tried to report what happened. Before Mass Sunday, the deacon read a statement, hard to hear in a faith rocked by scandals over the years.
The Archdiocese of Indianapolis is aware of a complaint filed on June 10th, 2026 in Marion County Superior Court involving Father Ronald Mervil.
A parishioner known as Jane Doe says she met Mervil after joining the church following her move here, seeking asylum. She was looking for work, and Mervil offered to help. In August 2024, he invited her to come to Indianapolis to attend a job fair with him at another church. Her lawsuit says when it ended, he took her to a family member's home in Greenwood, where Mervil demanded she hug him, and he attempted to kiss her. She refused, but still had to ride home with him. Her suit says on the way back, Mervil stopped in a dimly lit Wendy's parking lot, groped her, and then forced her to perform oral sex. She froze. Her suit says as other cars began arriving, Mervil drove through a surrounding neighborhood for another place to park to continue his assault. He couldn't find one, and they drove back. The suit says Mervil threatened her to keep quiet, saying he could close her asylum case. It alleges he texted her after and demanded pictures of her. Her suit says in September 2024, he went to her job at a grocery store, asked for help with vegetables, and asked whether she remembered his genitals looking like the vegetables. The Archdiocese of Indianapolis sent wave this statement, which was also read aloud in church Sunday.
Upon learning of the allegation, the Archdiocese immediately removed Father Mervil from ministry and reported the matter to the appropriate civil authorities.
Doe's suit says she tried to report Mervil to his boss, Father Thomas Clegg. Her suit says Clegg never met with her, did no investigation, and did nothing to protect her. A trial has not yet been set. Mervil's lawyer sent us a statement that says, in part, these allegations are serious, and Pastor Mervil intends to vigorously defend his position through the appropriate legal process. Now, the attorney wants to remind everyone the complaint contains allegations, not established facts. Mark Stevens, Wave News.
All right, thank you.